All right, so today we're going to take a deep dive into Robert Greene's The 48 Laws of Power.
Yeah.
You sent over some excerpts from this book,
Uh-huh.
and I got to admit, just skimming through them,
Yeah.
uh, I was kind of hooked.
Yeah,
It's like a playbook for navigating this world of power.
it is a playbook.
And today we're going to dissect its strategies, examine the historical examples,
Right.
and yes, even wrestle with some of the ethical questions it raises.
Yeah, and what really strikes me about Greene's work is just its directness.
Yeah.
He doesn't sugarcoat the pursuit of power at all.
Right.
He lays out these laws, some might even call them ruthless, but that individuals throughout history have used to climb to the top.
And you get a sense of that unapologetic approach, just reading the titles of these laws.
Uh-huh.
Never outshine the master.
Yeah.
How's that for a power move?
Yeah.
It makes you kind of pause and think about the dynamics between a superior and their subordinate.
It really flips the script on ambition, doesn't it?
Yeah.
You would think the goal would be to constantly impress your boss, to showcase all your talents and abilities.
Right.
But Greene's arguing that that overt ambition can really backfire. If you make your superior feel threatened in any way, you risk triggering maybe their insecurity or their jealousy.
So it's almost like playing the long game, right?
Totally.
Understanding the psychology of the person in power.
Yes.
Instead of trying to outshine them, you find ways to make them feel secure,
Exact.
superior even, while subtly advancing your own position.
It's a delicate dance, and it requires a deep understanding of human nature.
Okay, let's unpack another law that caught my eye.
Sure.
Pose as a friend, work as a spy. This one sounds straight out of a spy novel,
Right.
but I can see how that principle of gathering intelligence applies to all sorts of power dynamics.
Think about it. Knowledge is power.
Right?
And to acquire that knowledge, sometimes you need to be strategic, maybe even a bit discreet.
Yeah.
Greene uses the example of the Chinese military strategist, Zhuge Liang. He knew the value of having eyes and ears everywhere, even within the enemy ranks. His spies, disguised as merchants or travelers, would gather crucial information that would give him a strategic edge in battle.
I mean, that makes perfect sense in a wartime context,
Right.
but I can already hear some listeners saying,
Yeah.
wait a minute, is this encouraging corporate espionage?
Not necessarily. I think it's about being aware of what's happening around you, understanding the competitive landscape.
Right.
In a business setting, this could mean doing thorough market research.
Okay.
It could be analyzing competitor strategies, staying informed about industry trends.
So it's not about being sneaky or underhanded,
Yeah,
but rather being informed and strategic,
absolutely.
almost like a chess player thinking several moves ahead.
Precisely. Anticipating challenges, understanding your opponent's strengths and weaknesses, and using that knowledge to position yourself for success.
And speaking of understanding human nature,
Uh-huh.
there's a law that seems to turn conventional thinking on its head.
Yeah.
Disdain things you cannot have. Ignoring them is the best revenge. It sounds counterintuitive, almost like giving up.
But it's not about giving up. It's about recognizing when desire becomes detrimental, when it consumes you, when it controls you.
Right.
Think about King Henry VIII of England, fixated on having a male heir.
Right.
His desire just completely became an obsession, led him to make impulsive decisions that had long-reaching consequences.
Breaking from the Catholic Church just to secure a divorce.
Exactly.
Yeah, talk about letting desire dictate your actions.
Greene argues that sometimes the most powerful move is to step back, to detach yourself from what you can't have.
Okay.
It's about shifting your focus, finding things that you can control,
Right.
and refusing to let unattainable desires control your actions.
So it's not about suppressing ambition.
Right.
It's about channeling it strategically.
Yes,
Choosing your battles wisely.
precisely.
Okay, here's a law that seems particularly relevant in our fast-paced, information-saturated world. Win through your actions, never through argument. In a world where everyone seems to have an opinion, is Greene suggesting we just stay silent?
No, not at all.
Okay.
It's not about silence. It's about the power of demonstration. Think about it. Words can be incredibly persuasive,
Right.
but actions, they're undeniable.
Yeah.
They speak for themselves.
It reminds me of that story about Michelangelo sculpting the David.
Oh, right.
When a patron criticized the shape of the nose, Michelangelo didn't argue with him.
Yeah.
He pretended to adjust the nose, let some dust fall from his hand,
Wow.
and the patron, convinced that he'd made a change, was totally satisfied.
What a brilliant example of how actions can just circumvent pointless arguments.
Right.
Imagine just trying to convince someone with words alone versus just showing them the result.
Letting your work speak for itself.
Exactly.
That's such a powerful concept.
It is.
It shifts the focus from debate to demonstration.
Yes.
From words to tangible results.
And that's what Greene's all about. He's not interested in these theoretical debates about power. He's interested in the practical application of power.
Right.
Understanding how to navigate those complexities of human interaction to achieve your goals.
It's like he's giving us a set of tools, and it's up to us to decide how we're going to use them.
Precisely.
Right.
Are we going to build something beautiful and lasting, or are we going to use them for destruction? And that's the ethical dilemma at the heart of the 48 Laws of Power.
It's a dilemma that we're going to continue to explore as we dive deeper into these laws.
Definitely.
But first, let's take a closer look at a few more of these intriguing strategies.
Yeah.
One that really caught my attention was court attention at all costs, which seems to fly in the face of the saying, actions speak louder than words.
It's not about contradicting that saying. It's about understanding the power of perception.
Okay.
Greene argues that in a world just saturated with information, a world vying for attention, you need to stand out.
Right.
Think about P.T. Barnum, the master showman. Okay.
He understood that notoriety, even if controversial, was a form of power.
Right.
He knew how to grab the public's attention, and that in turn gave him influence.
So it's almost like saying, it doesn't matter what they say about you, as long as they're talking about you.
Totally.
Right.
Right.
But wouldn't that lead to a world of empty spectacle where substance takes a back seat to attention-grabbing tactics?
That's where the ethical consideration comes in.
Okay.
It's about using this law strategically, not manipulatively.
Okay.
Think about activists who use their platform to raise awareness about important issues.
Right.
They're courting attention for a greater purpose.
Yeah.
Shining a light on injustice or inspiring change.
So it's about aligning your desire for attention with a genuine purpose, with a message or a cause you believe in.
Precisely.
It's not about being loud for the sake of being loud. It's about using your voice, your platform, your actions to make a difference.
Okay. Let's shift gears a bit and look at a law that seems particularly relevant to anyone in a leadership position.
Okay.
Get others to do the work for you, but always take the credit. This one sounds a bit Machiavellian, doesn't it?
It certainly has that reputation, being ruthless.
Yeah.
But it's important to understand the nuance here.
Okay.
Greene isn't advocating for just exploiting others.
Right.
It's more about understanding the dynamics of delegation and leadership. Think about Thomas Edison, a brilliant inventor, but also a shrewd businessman.
Right.
He had a team of talented individuals working for him.
Yeah.
And he understood how to leverage their skills to bring his vision to life.
But there's a fine line between delegation and taking credit for someone else's work.
Absolutely. That's where the ethical consideration comes into play again.
Okay.
Good leaders delegate effectively, but they also give credit where credit is due.
Right.
They recognize and reward the contributions of their team.
Right.
They understand that true power comes from empowering others, not exploiting them.
So it's not about taking all the glory for yourself, but rather being the driving force, the visionary.
Yes.
Creating an environment where others can contribute and thrive.
Exactly.
Okay, let's wrap up this first part with a law that, on the surface, sounds a bit manipulative.
Sure.
Use selective honesty and generosity to disarm your victim. It makes you wonder if kindness can be weaponized.
It's a thought-provoking concept, isn't it?
Yeah.
And it speaks to the complexity of human interaction. Think about it.
Okay.
If someone is known for being deceptive or manipulative,
Right.
a sudden act of generosity can be very disarming. It can make people question their assumptions, wonder if they've misjudged the person.
But wouldn't that be a form of manipulation in itself? Using kindness as a tactic to gain an advantage?
It depends on the intention.
Okay.
Think about a business negotiation.
Right.
Offering a concession, a gesture of goodwill, can smooth the way for a deal. It shows the other party that you're willing to compromise, that you're not just out to get everything you can.
So it's about finding a balance.
Yeah.
Between being strategic and being genuine.
Right.
Between using these laws to navigate complex situations and maintaining a sense of integrity.
Precisely. And that's the challenge, isn't it?
Yeah.
To understand these laws, to recognize their power, but also to wield them responsibly, ethically, and with a focus on creating win-win situations.
We've only just scratched the surface here,
Mm-hmm.
and there are so many more layers to uncover as we delve deeper into the 48 laws of power.
Indeed.
So we've been unpacking some of the more strategic,
Mm-hmm.
even provocative laws
Right.
from the 48 laws of power.
Yes.
And as we dive deeper, I'm realizing just how many of these principles are at play in our everyday interactions,
Oh, yeah.
often without us even realizing it.
It's like Greene has given us this new lens
Right.
through which to view the world,
Yeah.
making us aware of these subtle, often unspoken dynamics of power that shape our relationships.
Our careers, our lives.
Exactly. And
Yeah.
one law that really highlights that awareness is know who you're dealing with, do not offend the wrong person.
Right.
Now, it seems like common sense on the surface,
Yeah.
but Greene takes it a step further,
Yeah.
arguing that understanding individual motivations is key to wielding power effectively.
It's about reading people,
Right.
recognizing that not everyone responds to the same tactics.
Mm,
What might work on one person could completely backfire on another.
right.
Greene uses this really fascinating example of Prince Chang'e.
Okay.
While in exile, he refused food from a ruler who was clearly testing him.
It seems counterintuitive refusing food when you're hungry.
Right.
But you're saying he was making a calculated move.
Absolutely.
Okay.
He understood that accepting the food would be seen as a sign of weakness,
Mm-hmm.
of submission.
Okay.
So by refusing, he projected strength and resolve.
So it's about understanding those unspoken rules of the game,
Right.
the subtle cues and signals.
That influence how people perceive you.
Absolutely.
And it makes you realize how important it is to be adaptable,
Totally.
right? To
Yeah.
tailor your approach based on the individual you're dealing with.
Precisely. It's a skill that can be honed over time.
Mm.
This ability to read people, to understand their motivations, their insecurities, their unspoken desires.
Right,
And once you understand those things, you can tailor your approach accordingly.
right.
Whether you're negotiating a business deal or navigating a tricky social situation.
Okay, let's talk about a law that sounds like it's straight out of a spy thriller.
Okay.
Pose as a friend, work as a spy.
Mm.
Sounds a bit duplicitous, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Befriending someone just to gather information?
I think, again, it's not about being disingenuous,
Okay,
but rather being strategic in your information gathering.
okay.
Knowledge is power.
Right.
Sometimes you need to be discreet, maybe even a bit clever,
Mm-hmm.
to acquire that knowledge.
Yeah,
Think back to Zhuge Liang,
right.
that brilliant Chinese strategist.
Right.
His spies disguised as ordinary people,
Right.
blended in seamlessly into enemy territory, gathering that crucial intel that gave him a strategic edge.
That makes sense in a wartime context.
Right.
But how does this translate to our everyday lives?
Right.
Are you suggesting we should all be suspicious of our colleagues?
No,
Constantly trying to glean information from them?
not at all. It's not about being paranoid or distrustful.
Okay.
It's about being observant, paying attention to the dynamics at play around you.
Right.
In a business setting, this could mean staying informed about industry trends,
Mm-hmm.
researching your competitors, understanding the motivations of key players in your field.
So it's about being aware, informed, and strategic in your interactions,
Absolutely.
but not in a way that compromises your integrity or betrays someone's trust.
Exactly.
Right.
It's about using your intelligence, your network, your resources to gain those valuable insights that can help you navigate this complex world of power.
Okay, let's move on to a law that seems to contradict the very notion of ambition. Disdain things you cannot have. Ignoring them is the best revenge. Now, aren't we constantly told to pursue our dreams?
Right.
To never give up on what we want?
Right, and this law isn't about abandoning your aspirations.
Okay,
It's about recognizing when desire becomes detrimental,
right.
when it consumes you to the point where it really hinders your progress.
Okay,
Think about King Henry VIII, obsessed with having a male heir.
right.
His relentless pursuit of that led him to make rash decisions,
Yeah,
even break from the Catholic Church,
right.
all in the name of fulfilling that one desire.
And look at the consequences of his actions.
Right.
The upheaval, the turmoil it caused.
It's a stark reminder that unchecked desire can be a very destructive force.
So Greene's arguing that sometimes the most powerful move is to step back.
Yes.
Detach yourself from that which is unattainable.
It's about mastering your emotions,
Okay.
recognizing that sometimes letting go is the wisest course of action.
So it's not about suppressing ambition,
Right.
but rather channeling it strategically.
Absolutely.
Choosing your battles wisely.
Yes.
Recognizing that sometimes the best revenge is a life well-lived, unburdened by unattainable desires.
Exactly. Focusing on what you can control, what brings you fulfillment,
Right.
and letting go of the things that drain your energy and distract you from your true purpose.
This next law seems particularly relevant in today's world, where everyone has a platform and an opinion.
Yeah.
Win through your actions, never through argument. In a world of constant debate, is Greene suggesting we stay silent?
No, not at all.
Okay.
He's highlighting the power of demonstration over debate. Think about it. Words can be very persuasive, but actions are undeniable.
Right.
They speak for themselves, they cut through the noise,
Yeah.
and they prove your point more effectively than any argument ever could.
I love the example you shared about Michelangelo and the David.
Yeah.
When criticized, he didn't engage in a debate about aesthetics.
Right.
He just made it appear as though he'd made a change, satisfying the critic without uttering a word.
Absolutely brilliant.
Right.
A principle that applies to so many areas of life.
Yeah.
Instead of wasting time and energy trying to convince someone of something, just show them.
Right.
Let your actions speak for themselves.
Let your results be your argument.
Exactly.
It's about shifting the focus from talk to action,
Yes.
from rhetoric to results.
And in a world saturated with opinions,
Right.
it's the doers that stand out.
The ones who make things happen.
Exactly. And that's a powerful message, especially in today's world.
Yeah.
It's a reminder that we have the power to shape our own destinies, not through words, but through deliberate, focused action.
Speaking of action, let's move on to a law that seems to encourage a bit of boldness.
Yeah.
Court attention at all cost. Now, isn't this the kind of thinking that leads to empty spectacle,
Yeah.
where substance takes a backseat to attention-grabbing tactics?
It's a valid concern, and it's where the ethical consideration really comes in.
Right.
Greene isn't advocating for attention for its own sake.
Okay.
He's arguing that in a world overflowing with information, you need to stand out to be heard. Think about P.T. Barnum, the master showman.
Right.
He understood that notoriety, even if controversial, was a form of power.
Right.
He knew how to capture the public's imagination, and that in turn gave him influence.
So it's not about being loud or outrageous just for the sake of it.
Right.
It's about strategically using your voice, your platform, your actions to amplify a message, a cause, a vision you believe in.
Precisely.
Right.
Think about activists who use their platform to raise awareness about really critical issues.
Right.
They're courting attention for a greater purpose, shining a light on injustice or inspiring change.
It's about aligning your desire for attention with a genuine purpose,
Absolutely.
with a message that resonates with actions that make a difference.
Exactly. It's about recognizing that in a world where everyone has a voice, it's not enough to just speak.
Right.
You need to be heard. And sometimes that requires a bit of boldness, a willingness to stand out from the crowd.
Okay, let's shift gears and look at a law that might raise some eyebrows.
Yeah.
Get others to do the work for you, but always take the credit. This sounds a bit ruthless, doesn't it?
Yeah, it certainly has a reputation for being Machiavellian.
Yeah.
But I think let's break it down a little bit.
Okay.
Greene isn't advocating for exploiting others.
Okay.
He's highlighting a principle that's been used by effective leaders throughout history.
Mm-hmm.
The ability to delegate effectively to leverage the talents of others.
Right.
To achieve a common goal.
Okay.
Think about Thomas Edison. A brilliant inventor, no doubt,
Yeah.
but also a very shrewd businessman.
Right.
He surrounded himself with talented individuals and understood how to harness their skills to bring his vision to life.
But there's a fine line between delegation and taking undue credit.
Absolutely. And that's where the ethical consideration becomes really paramount.
Right.
Good leaders delegate effectively, but they also give credit where credit is due.
Right.
They recognize and reward the contributions of their team. They understand that true power comes from empowering others,
Right.
not exploiting them.
So it's not about hoarding all the glory for yourself,
Right.
but rather being the driving force,
Visionary.
creating an environment where others can contribute and thrive.
Exactly. It's about orchestrating success.
Yeah.
Recognizing that a truly powerful leader doesn't need to do all the work themselves. They need to inspire, motivate, and empower others to contribute their best.
Okay, let's wrap up this part with a law that, on the surface, seems a bit manipulative.
Okay.
Use selective honesty and generosity to disarm your victim. can kindness be weaponized?
Yeah.
Is that what Greene is suggesting?
It's a very provocative concept, isn't it? And it speaks to the complexity of human interaction.
Right.
Think about it. If someone is known for being deceptive or manipulative,
Right.
a sudden act of kindness can be very disarming. It can make people question their assumptions, wonder if they've misjudged the person.
But wouldn't that be a form of manipulation in itself? Using kindness as a tactic to gain an advantage.
You know, it all comes down to intention.
Okay.
Think about a business negotiation.
Right.
Offering a concession, a gesture of goodwill, can often smooth the way for a deal. It shows the other party that you're willing to compromise, that you're not just out to get everything you can.
So it's about finding that balance between being strategic and being genuine.
Yes.
Right. Between using these laws to navigate complex situations and maintaining a sense of integrity.
Exactly. And that's the challenge, isn't it?
Yeah.
To understand these laws, to recognize their power, but to also wield them responsibly, ethically, and with a focus on creating those win-win situations.
As we continue to delve deeper into the 48 laws of power, I'm realizing how much these principles are at play in our everyday lives.
Absolutely.
Often without us even realizing it. It's like Greene has given us this new lens through which to view the world.
Yes.
And with that new lens comes a responsibility.
Absolutely.
To use this knowledge wisely and ethically.
Indeed, understanding the dynamics of power is essential, not just for those who seek to wield it, but for all of us who are subject to its influence.
Right.
By recognizing these laws, by understanding how they operate, we can navigate these complexities of human interaction with greater awareness, intention, and integrity.
So we spent the last couple parts exploring some of the more strategic and sometimes eyebrow-raising laws from Robert Greene's The 48 Laws of Power.
Yeah.
And it's clear that this book isn't just a historical analysis.
Right.
It's a lens through which we can examine power dynamics in our own lives.
And what I find fascinating is that Greene never claims that these laws are inherently good or evil.
Right.
He presents them almost as observations about how power operates,
Right.
leaving it up to the reader to determine how they want to apply these principles or even reject them.
It's like he's handing us a toolkit, but he's not giving us an instruction manual.
Yeah.
He's saying, here are the tools, now you decide what to build.
And that's where the real challenge comes in, and I think the ethical considerations as well.
Right.
Are we going to use these tools to build something that benefits ourselves and others, or are we going to wield them in a way that's destructive?
It's a question that's been swirling in my mind as we've been discussing these laws. Some of them, like use selective honesty and generosity to disarm your victim, seem inherently manipulative.
Yeah.
How do we reconcile these tactics with a desire to act ethically?
I think the key lies in the intention behind the action. Are you using these strategies to build genuine relationships, to create win-win situations?
Yeah.
Or are you simply trying to exploit others for your own gain?
So it's not about condemning these laws outright,
Right.
but rather understanding the potential for both positive and negative application.
Absolutely.
It's about wielding them with a sense of responsibility.
Yes.
Recognizing that power, like any tool, can be used for good or for ill.
Exactly, and I think one of the most valuable aspects of Greene's work is that it forces us to confront those often uncomfortable realities of power.
Right.
We can't pretend that these dynamics don't exist.
Right.
We need to understand them,
Yeah.
recognize how they operate
Right.
in order to navigate the world effectively and ethically.
One of the laws that really got me thinking about this is avoid stepping into a great man's shoes. It suggests that trying to directly follow in the footsteps of a successful predecessor can actually be a recipe for failure.
It's counterintuitive, isn't it?
It is, yeah.
You would think that following a proven path would lead to success.
Right.
But Greene argues that it often sets you up for these impossible comparisons and ultimately undermines your own unique strengths.
He uses the example of Louis the Calf-Teeth,
Right.
who inherited the throne from his highly successful great-grandfather, Louis XIV.
Talk about pressure.
I mean, right, Louis XIV,
Yeah.
the Sun King,
Yeah.
cast a long shadow,
He did.
centralized power,
Built the magnificent Palace of Versailles.
ruled France for over 70 years.
It's no wonder Louis XVI struggled to live up to that legacy.
So what's the lesson here? Should we avoid following in anyone's footsteps?
Not necessarily. I think it's about recognizing that true power comes from forging your own path,
Okay.
building on the successes of the past, but carving out your own unique space.
Right.
It's about learning from those who came before you,
Right.
but not being bound by their legacy.
It's about recognizing your own strengths and talents.
Yes.
Finding what makes you unique.
Absolutely.
Using those qualities to create something new and meaningful.
Define success on your own terms. Not measure yourself against some impossible standard set by someone else.
Okay, let's talk about a law that seems particularly relevant in today's world.
Okay.
Of complex organizations and these interconnected networks.
Yeah.
Strike, the shepherd and the sheep will scatter. Now, this one sounds a bit aggressive, even Machiavellian.
It's certainly a bold statement. Yeah.
But it speaks to a very fundamental principle of power dynamics.
Okay.
Identifying and influencing those key players.
Right.
Greene argues that in any group or organization, there are often a few individuals who hold disproportionate sway.
So it's not about brute force or intimidation.
Right.
But rather about strategic targeting.
Exactly.
Understanding who truly holds the reins of power.
Yes.
And finding ways to influence their actions.
Think about a company negotiating a merger.
Okay.
Instead of trying to win over every single employee,
Right.
they focus on convincing those key decision makers.
Right.
The board members, the CEO.
Right.
If you can sway those individuals, the rest will follow.
It's about understanding the flow of power.
Yeah.
Recognizing that influence often radiates outward from a central point.
Precisely.
Right.
And this principle applies to all sorts of situations.
Yeah.
From navigating office politics to influencing public opinion.
Yeah.
It's about understanding who holds the real power.
Finding ways to align their interests with your own.
This deep dive into the 48 laws of power has been a real eye-opener. It's challenged my assumptions about power,
Yeah.
making me realize that it's not some distant force reserved for politicians or CEOs.
Right.
It's a dynamic that's constantly at play in our everyday lives.
And that's the key takeaway.
Yeah.
Power is not inherently good or evil.
Right.
It's a force like gravity or electricity. It can be used to build or to destroy, to empower or to exploit.
Right.
The real power lies in understanding these dynamics, in recognizing how they operate, and in choosing to wield them responsibly, ethically, and with a focus on creating a better world for ourselves and for others.
It's about recognizing we all have a role to play in shaping the world around us.
Absolutely.
And that power, when used wisely and intentionally, can be a force for positive change.
I agree.
Well, thanks for joining me on this deep dive
It's been a pleasure.
into the 48 laws of power.
My pleasure.
And if you're listening, we encourage you to explore the 48 laws of power for yourself.
Yes.
Come to your own conclusions about its value and relevance.
Absolutely.
Until next time, keep learning, keep questioning,
Yeah.
and keep striving to use your power for good.